Welcome to video 4. We're solving one variable inequalities. Um, this is kind of awesome because when you solve inequalities within one variable, it's almost like solving just a regular equation. There's just a couple different things. So this just kind of builds on our knowledge. So here we've got a less than and a greater than, and a less than or equal to, and a greater than or equal to. And I've boxed them apart like this because here for when we draw our graphs, if it's a less than or just a greater than, we're going to have an open dot. And you might be thinking, what the heck is she talking about? But here when we get to our graphs, it'll make a little bit more sense, okay? So we'll just kind of go with this. This we're going to have a closed dot, okay? So we're going to use that once we get to actually solving some problems. So first, let's just get a couple basics of what do we do when we see this, okay? So the first one, like I said, you're just going to solve this like a regular equation. Okay, and we've been practicing those, we've been doing those, so you guys should be really good here. This is a kind of a really big thing. One big thing. This is important. Okay, all caps, mega important. Okay, if you multiply or divide by a negative, okay, you are going to flip the inequality sign. So what this means is if you have a greater than and you divide by a negative, you will flip that mid-problem to a less than, okay? So it just goes backwards. Okay, and then one last thing is sometimes we got to be careful when things are written backwards. Okay, we're used to seeing it one way, and when we see it another way, we kind of forget. All right, so what that means is sometimes you might see something that looks like this. -2 is greater than or equal to x. Okay, and a lot of times for math students, that's complicated. It's kind of hard to read it backwards. I would change that to x is less than or equal to -2. Okay, to me, it makes much more sense to rewrite. So when we're going through problems, I'm going to be rewriting for you guys too. Okay, it just makes a little bit more sense in my head. All right, so let's get down and let's do some examples, okay?
The adverb noun is usually defined as from higher to lower in descending direction.
Sorry about that. My Alexa started going off a little crazy. All right, okay. So here, we're going to start. We've got these parentheses. We know what to do. Go ahead and distribute those. All right. So I've got -12x plus 4 plus 6x is greater than or equal to 16. Okay, now go ahead and combine like terms. So I'm going to have -6x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 16. Okay, we can subtract our 4 on both sides. And I've got -6x is greater than or equal to 12. All right, almost there. Now, this is where we're talking about dividing or multiplying by a negative. So here I have divided by a -6. So I'm going to flip my inequality sign. All right, so it flips that. That's all it does. And this is -2. Okay, so this is my answer. However, I'm not done yet. Okay, so remember up here when I was talking about open and closed dots? That's when we graph, okay? So when you graph, it doesn't have to be a very detailed graph. So I put usually around 3 numbers. So in the middle, I'm going to put -2, and then I'm going to put 2 numbers on the sides of it. Okay, just so I kind of get that image of where I'm at on the number line. Okay, so it's a closed dot. So when we draw that, It's because it's including -2 as part of my solution, okay? It's not everything up to it, it's everything including -2. Okay, and it says x is less than, so I want all the numbers less than. So I'm going to draw my arrow this direction. Okay, because these numbers are less than -2. Okay, and another little hint is if you have it written with the variable first, whatever direction your inequality sign is, that's the way your arrow is going to point. Okay, but that's only if your variable is first. Okay, all right, so let's do another example. Oh, here's some great decimals. Don't be freaked out by decimals, okay? These are your friends. We're going to do a lot of work with decimals and fractions over these videos, so just get used to them. All right, so I've got variables on both sides. I want to get variables on one side, okay? And so I'm going to subtract that 1.5x on both sides. And then I'm left with 2x. Ah, there we go. No more decimals. All right. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and subtract my 19. Now I'm not going to flip my sign here, even though this is a negative. It's only when you multiply or divide. All right, and last but not least, let's go ahead and divide by 2. And since 2 is positive, we are not going to flip our sign. All right, so we've got x is greater than -13. Okay, so on your number line, I like to put my number as the first one, -13, and you can put 2 numbers on the sides of it. Now here, this is just a greater than. So it's everything greater than 13, but not 13, okay? And so that's why it's an open circle, and it's all the numbers that are bigger than 13. Okay, and there's your graph. Okay, now we're going to do 2 other examples that kind of you'll be familiar with from our last video, from video 3, okay? Things here might look a little more familiar when we solve these. There should not be a parentheses here. All right, so starting off, we are going to go ahead and distribute. So I've got my -6x plus 15 is greater than -6x plus 9. Okay, I'm going to add 6x to both sides because we want to get our variables on one side. But when I do that, they cancel out on both sides. Okay, and so I'm just left with 15 is greater than 9. Now, that looks a little different than our other problems. Okay, so then I look at this and I say, is this a true statement? Is 15 bigger than 9? Well, yeah, it is, okay? And since it is, it's going to mean that all real numbers is your solution, okay? And so for this, I would accept this as your answer, and when you would draw a number line, it would just be everything on the number line. I don't even put a number down because I just know it's going to be everything, okay? Your teacher might have you do different, but that's how I do these problems. Okay, so remember that all real numbers, that's what we looked at in video 4. That's a type of solution. All right, and number 4, okay, I need to distribute over here. Hopefully, as soon as we see parentheses, we know that we should be distributing. And I've got 4x minus 6. All right, I've subtracted 4x from both sides. And here I've got -5 is less than -6. Okay, now this is where it gets tricky because negatives can kind of mess us up a little bit. But -5 is not bigger than -6. Okay, this is not true. So I like to put a line through that, and this would be no solution. Or if you guys want to you could put that circle with a line through it. They mean the same thing. Okay, and for this, it's no solution. It's none of the numbers on the number line, so you do not need to draw anything on your number line. All right, so that is just a quick overview of solving one variable inequalities.